Hello there! Are you new to the game of chess and are looking to improve your game, whether it be to stop hanging your pieces all the time, or maybe catching your opponent hanging their pieces, or maybe you want to get better at spotting checkmate on the board? Well, a good way to practice that is by solving a bunch of chess puzzles. Chess puzzles are positions that are given to you with a set solution, whether it be checkmate or winning a large amount of material. And the more puzzles you solve, the better your pattern recognition becomes, and the more often and quickly you're going to spot these tactics in real games. So today I'm going to be walking you through how to solve the first 15 or so puzzles of Puzzle Rush, so that by the end of this video, hopefully you have a thought process you can follow, a checklist, if you will, for how to solve these, and you'll be able to practice that on your own. So when we are handed a puzzle like this, we want to look for checks, captures, and threats, generally in that order. Why? Because checks are the most forcing moves in the game of chess. If you give a check, your opponent has to respond to that, whether it be moving the king, blocking the check, or capturing your piece. The responses are limited and forced, so you can quickly take a look at those and see if any of them look promising. If they don't, you want to then look at captures. Are there any pieces I can take for free? Undefended pieces that I can just win, or something of that nature. Maybe a tactic associated with capturing a piece. And if none of the checks or captures look interesting or promising, at least, then you want to look for threats or attacks. Can I attack a piece that maybe has nowhere to go, therefore trapping the piece and winning it? Something of that nature. So let's take a look here. Do we have any checks? Well, if we look at this position for a second, we see we do. We have one check, and that is bishop takes h2. And what do I notice about that? Well, the king is in check, and it can't capture our bishop because our rook is defending it. Can it step out of the way? Well, no, because our light squared bishop takes away those squares. So that means that bishop takes h2 is going to be checkmate, and that is our solution here. All right, one down. So black just took our rook here, or our rook with their rook. So we have a queen and a bishop. Black has a bishop as well and two rooks. So two rooks for the queen, all right? And what do I notice? Well, I see that black's king is kind of stuck on the back rank here. Its pawns are trapping it in all the way in the corner here. So if we give a check, it's probably going to be checkmate. Oh, man! Oh, what a sneeze. Okay, back to the action here. Oh, man. So if we give a check, probably going to be mate unless our check can be blocked or our piece can be captured. And you see I already highlighted our move here. If we look for checks, we see that both of these hang the queen. The king can take there, or the bishop or the rook can take if we go there. But this square on c8 is unprotected, so that's going to be a back rank checkmate. A good pattern to know, we're probably going to get a few of those. If the king is stuck on the back rank like that, always look for checks or things you can set up for a back rank mate. All right, what do we have here? Well, we want to look for checks, right? Do we have any? If we look for a second, we see we have one check, because this is not a check, and there's no way for the bishop to check the king, right? We have queen takes e7 check. And that is actually going to be mate, because the bishop defends the queen, so the king can't take us, and there's no escape for the king, so that is checkmate in one. And a lot of these puzzles at the lower end of this puzzle rush are going to be mate in one, or like a free piece or something like that. But if you're not great at spotting these, then definitely practice solving it so you get better at it. All right. Remember when I said a common thing important common thing we want to keep in mind is when we notice the king trapped behind its pawns like this, we want to look for back rank weaknesses. There's nothing patrolling the back rank right now. So let's take a look at our rook. We can give a check, rook b8 check, and the only way for black to respond is by blocking it with these pieces, the rook and the queen, but we see that we're just going to take them because they are undefended. So we take, and that's checkmate. Okay, so our king, white's king just stepped out of check here. We have our knight in the center of the board, and we want to look for checks. We only have one in this position, and that is queen h4 check. Does that look promising? Well, I would say so, because nothing can block our check on these dark squares. So the king is actually going to have to slide over. So we give this check on h4. The king slides over to f1. That is forced. Again, that's why you look for checks, because this move is literally forced by white. So you can predict the future. And who wouldn't want to predict the future, right? So we give a check, force the king over, and then we see our knight controls the f2 square, and our queen is also staring at it. So if we swing our queen over, and the puzzle ends, but we swing our queen into f2, and that would have been checkmate. Okay. So what happened? White just took our knight. Cool. Do we have any checks, right? First thing I want to look for. We do. We have queen takes d4 check, and that appears to be our only check at the moment. So let's look into it. Queen takes d4. That knight is hanging, meaning nothing is defending it, and that is check. White can't block with the bishop because that's a free bishop. We take it. So check. If the rook blocks or the king slides over, what do we notice about that position? So let's say we give a check and rook blocks. I notice that this knight will have two attackers. Our bishop and our queen will be attacking that knight. And it only has one defender, the bishop. So this is actually a fork, basically. We give this check. And then do we take with the queen? No, because we don't want to lose our queen. So we take with the bishop. And after bishop recaptures, we take and we're up a piece. Okay. Look for checks, right? Our queen is under attack, but if we give a check, white has to respond to that before he can take our queen, right? So let's take a look at, bishop f3. Yeah, white recaptures, and there's not much of that. We just lose our bishop. Okay. Rook g1. Just takes it, so that's no good. What about, rook g2? Huh? King can't take us because we're defended by our rook. They're teaming up like this. Very powerful. If the queen is backed up, if the queen has backup, not backed up, that means something else. If the queen has backup, then very, very powerful things can happen, right? That wasn't the most elegant way to say that. I'm stumbling over myself. But anyway, queen to g2 is going to be mate because nothing can take our queen and the king will be out of squares. So we give that, boom. Okay, so we just lost our pawn, rook take. We have a queen, a rook, a bishop, and we have an extra knight. So we are actually up a knight here for a pawn because black has one extra pawn. What do we have? Well, what did I say? When the queen has backup, very powerful, right? So when you say that, you might think, oh, well, I can take the rook here, and then queen takes, and we take. Yeah, I guess we'll still be up a piece there. But do we have anything better? Well, we also notice that the queen and the bishop are teamed up. This is called a battery, okay? Like a battering ram when you're breaking down a door, right? So the queen and the bishop team up and form this battery, and you just follow your eyes across the board where that battery is pointed, and you see it's pointed right at the enemy king. And this square is undefended. That's going to be checkmate. So let's go ahead and deliver mate. All right. So what do we have here? We just lost our knight, and our queen is hit by the bishop. So we don't want to lose our queen. Okay. If we take the knight, oh, what am I doing? Silly me. If you catch yourself thinking like that, oh, what happens if I take the knight? We didn't look for checks yet. You're looking at this. You're thinking, oh, well, my queen is hit. I probably want to move it somewhere or take the knight. No. First, look for checks and see if they're promising. If not, then you look at the captures or where to move your queen. So if we look for checks, we see that we have queen here, but that hangs the queen, so no good. And we see we have queen here. That also hangs the queen. But if we keep following, queen d8 check, that square is undefended, and the king will have no squares. And we're defended by our rook. So we can go ahead and deliver mate. Look at that. Okay, what do we have here? We have a rook and 4 pawns. White has a rook and 5 pawns. So we're down a pawn. Okay, do we have any checks? We have this, rook f3, but then king takes, and we are down a rook, so that's no good. So maybe not checks. Do we have any captures? Or actually, sorry, we do have another couple checks here, pawn checks. So e5 check just loses the pawn, and then we're going to be in check and have to move. So let's put that aside. Probably not it. What about g5 check? Pawn checks. They're a little harder to see. I even almost missed it for a second. But g5 check. King can't take because we have this pawn chain here, and it can't take this because that is also defended. And our rook is cutting off the king on the third rank, so the king is going to have no squares. It can't go here because our king is protecting that square. So g5, you see I can hover over it, is actually going to be checkmate. All right, so what do we have here? Well, I see that we have a queen, a rook, and 2 minor pieces, and white has the same, okay? We have 3 pawns, white has 4. So we're down a pawn. Good to know. Do we have any checks? Well, let's see. That just gives up the queen, and that's our only check, so that's no good. Do we have any captures? Yeah. We see, let's look, knight d5. We'll just lose a knight because we only have 2 attackers, and white has 2 defenders on that pawn, so we can't really take that. We also notice our bishop is pinned to our queen, but it's not an absolute pin. If a king was here, that would be an absolute pin, and the bishop cannot legally move. Here, the bishop can move. We just have to be extra careful that we're doing the right thing. So let's see. If we take with the queen, right, we're looking at captures, then pawn takes, and we lose our queen. So that's no good, and there's no mate follow-up. What about bishop takes? Yes, our queen is hanging, but white's queen is also hanging because we take and we're up a knight in that position. And if white takes our queen, we take their queen and we're just going to be up a piece there. Interesting. Okay, this seems promising. Let's keep calculating because that line isn't forced, right? If we take, white doesn't have to take our queen. They have other choices. If white takes back with the pawn, then we look for checks. What happens when the pawn leaves the b file? Our rook opens up and sees the king, right? So that could be important. So if we take and they take, we do have a check, but also we notice that the rook is hanging there as well because the rook won't be defended by the knight. So we have a few good, things to look at in that position if they take with the pawn. We can give a check first and force something like, bishop back to make white more passive and then win the rook or something like that. What happens if they take back with the queen? Okay. Well, the rook is hanging because we are attacking the rook after our bishop moves. So let's go ahead and take this and see what white does. White chooses to just be down a piece. We take the queen and we will have an extra knight. All right. We're doing pretty well. That was a bit more complicated. We had to take a few things into consideration. And notice how I didn't find, the exact solution after, the pawn takes. There were a couple promising options there, but I knew that capture definitely led to some good positions. So I went for it and waited to see what the response was. And then I can see what the win is there. So what do we have here? I noticed there's a standoff between the queens, right? So that's very important to note. What checks do we have? We have a couple knight checks to these 2 squares, and those will reveal the connection between the queens. They will actually see each other in that position. Okay, so let's see. If we go knight f3 check, the queen is actually pinned to the king, right? So the queen won't be able to take us because then the king would be in check from our queen, and they can't take our queen because they're in check. So knight f3, what about just bishop takes f3? We lose our knight. And, if we take, that's just a queen trade and we're down a piece. And we're already down a piece, actually. If you count material, we have 2 rooks, a queen, and a knight, and white has 2 rooks, a queen, and 2 minor pieces. So, yeah, we don't want to lose another piece, right? But what was our other check? Knight e2. Ooh, okay. So, again, the queen can't take, and the bishop can't take us there either. So, knight e2 check, the king has to slide over to h1. Okay, big whoop. What do we have there? Do we have any checks? We'll have knight g3, but then either queen takes, pawn takes, so we just lose our knight there, so probably not. King h1. We don't have any other checks, so what do we have? We have captures. Okay, what captures do we have? Well, let's take a look at queen takes f2 there, right? Because the queens will see each other. So knight e2 and queen takes f2. Rook is going to recapture our queen. And what do we see there? The back rank is going to be very weak in that position because the rook is not going to be guarding it anymore, and this rook is cut off from the action because the bishop is in the way. Oh, now we're getting somewhere. So knight e2 check, king h1 is forced, and queen takes f2, rook takes f2. Do we have anything to exploit the weak back rank? We do. We have a rook on an open file because our knight is out of the way. So rook can slide down to d1 check, and the rook is going to have to go back, and we take it, and it's going to be mate. So let's go ahead, give this check, and I hope we get to play it out. We take the queen. There we go, and we give this check, and this is mate. All right. Now we're getting somewhere. We're on 12 or 13 here. I know it says 12, but I think we might be on 13. We've successfully solved 12. Okay, so what do we have? I see we have a queen, 2 rooks, and a knight. And black has a queen, 2 rooks, and a minor piece. This pawn is very, very scary. This pawn is about to take our rook and make a queen. So we have to be extra careful, okay? We're probably looking for checks, because then black won't be able to take our rook. So let's look for checks. What do we have? We have queen takes f7, but then king takes f7. And that's no good. We just lose our queen. I don't see any follow-up there. Do we have any other checks? We have knight f6 check, pawn takes, and nothing. We have knight e7 check. Okay. And if the king just slides over, then what? Right? I don't really see anything. Okay. So what are our other options here? What do we have? Well, those are our checks. None of them looked super promising. Oh, wait. Did we miss something? Let's go back. See, we didn't really calculate. We just said, oh, I don't really... Yeah. Okay. Knight e7 check. Say the king moves somewhere. Our rook is opened up by that move. We have to see that. Okay. So knight e7, the king moves to one of these 2 squares. And this rook on d8 is going to have 2 attackers. Our rook and our queen are staring at it, and it only has 1 defender. So if we give this check on e7 and the king moves, then we swing our rook into d8 check, forcing rook d8, and queen takes d8 is going to be a back rank checkmate. See, now it's... Before it was more simple. It was like rook down, it's back rank mate. Now we have some more moving parts, right? Opening up the attack on the rook by giving a check and taking and giving mate. Look at that. Okay. This one, we had some more complicated puzzles than this. This is a mate in 1. Notice the queen is very close to the king. The king is basically out of squares. It is out of squares because our pawn is controlling the getaway squares. So queen e6 is our check, defended by the pawn, and that's just going to be mate. So, okay. What do I see here? Checks, right? That loses a queen, going to e8. What about e7? Defended by our rook, king has to slide over to g8. What do we have there? This is a pattern that we should already be getting more and more familiar with the back rank, right? The king is going to be trapped in by the pawns. So after we force the king to the side, we can sacrifice our queen. The queen with check, forcing rook takes, and then the rook comes in as backup to deliver mate. I almost went here by accident. So queen e7, the king slides over, and we sack our queen and recapture with the rook with mate. All right, let's just finish this last puzzle here. What do we have? We have a rook and a knight, and white has the same. We have 4 pawns, and white also has 4 pawns. So material is equal. Checks. What do we have? We have rook g4 check, and the king can't go here because of our knight. So rook g4, king h3 is forced. What do we have there? Do we have any promising checks? Well, not rook checks because we would just lose our rook. So rook g4, king h3. We see that now the king is on a checkable square with the knight. The knight can go to f2, and that's going to be checkmate because our rook takes away these 2 squares, so we can give this check. Oh, and it didn't even let us finish it up here. But hopefully you saw the mate there. Okay, so that is generally how you solve the first 15 or so puzzles of Puzzle Rush. Hope you enjoyed. Thank you for making it to the end of the video. If you did, I mean... If you're hearing this, then you did, so thank you. If you liked the video, make sure to click that like button. I keep hitting my microphone whenever I do that. And subscribe, I would greatly appreciate it. Leave a comment below, let me know your thoughts, suggestions, requests for future videos, and I'll see you guys around. Have a great day.